How about the
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics never the same. All presentation, sports information, hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
What's going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the All Sports, All Plays Network. This is Sports Corner, brought to you by Nate the Great, Ray Cruz, and Greg Downlow. Before we get right into the topics today, breaking down each one of the games, so that's too late into real talk. We do have a couple of advertisements that we need to bring up. So the first one is Suzanne Paparazzi Jewelry.
Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us, from all of us here at the ASAP Network.
And now, Misty Meadows. Oh gosh, I've never been. I mean, I have been to Oregon, but I've never been to that place. But oh my gosh, it sounds so good to have right now. Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to remind everybody that those people that are watching, I see a couple in there, and you want to comment in the comment section. Basically, anyone not an ASAP analyst that wants to win a free t-shirt, all you have to do is like the show, comment the show, share the show, be engaged in the show. The person that gets the most comments wins a free t-shirt by the end of the month. And we do that by tallying up every single comment from every single show. The person that gets the most wins that shirt. But say for a second, you're not the lucky winner of the month. You are listening instead of watching. You're driving. You're on your way home. You can't really make it. Every single comment, every single show. If that's the case, then it's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. The sizes go from small to 2XL. So right now we're getting into the topics. It's right now second half currently in the round of 32 for USC and Kansas. That game currently is USC's in the lead, 49-30 over Kansas. That's completely just blowing up my bracket right now. I have Kansas going into that Final Four. That's looking not to be happening. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to backtrack for a second. What did you think about the Gonzaga and Norfolk State game? Ray, we'll go with you.
That was no contest. I mean,
yeah,
Gonzaga won 98-55. I mean, Norfolk State is not a real big basketball school in Norfolk, Virginia. So I mean, that right there was just an easy game for Gonzaga to win. It was just an easy game, and that 16 seed was never going to beat that number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty much that way for all except for maybe I can argue 2 games that Gonzaga had a close competition. BYU that third time, that being one of them, and there was one time I think they beat Virginia by like 5 points earlier on the season. it's just been that way for this entire season. It same goes. Now, Greg, going to you. What were your thoughts about that game?
Man, I thought that Gonzaga looked really sharp. I mean, you got a player in Jalen Suggs. You know, he's probably going to be a top five draft pick this year coming up in the draft. You know, you don't see too many of those players really coming into a program like Gonzaga. Gonzaga is usually a program that's noted for having, you know, juniors and senior depth. They don't really get too many one and dones really knocking on their door or wanting to play like Jalen Suggs. But I thought that they had an overall well-balanced attack. You know, they didn't really that game really didn't require Jalen Suggs to really break too much of a sweat. You know, they just handled the ball exceptionally well. Low turnovers. I mean, great transition offense. That guy with that killer mustache for Gonzaga was tearing it up. You know, and yeah, they just look pretty good. I mean, you know, honestly, Norfolk State looked like a true 16 seed. You know, I mean, there's been some competitive games. There's been some definite good upsets, especially with Oral Roberts, you know, making it all the way into
we'll
the
get
Sweet
to that
16.
later.
But don't get me started about Oral Roberts. I'm already upset about that one. So remember, Nate, about the dream I had about Earl Hershiser and all
Oh
that.
gosh, yes. Oh gosh.
Not putting any money down on Oral Roberts that night. So anyway, I thought that that game was pretty much a freebie. You know, that game was pretty much decided, you know, about halfway through the first half. I mean, Norfolk State, I mean, they tried to slow the game down and everything, which just isn't their style of play, and they just couldn't do it. I mean, they just got handled. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. I mean, they got out rebounded, out hustled. I mean, they just did not put on a very good show.
You know, going into the next game, Missouri versus Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma won this game 72-68, won by 4 points. Go with Greg on this one first. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I thought it was a really good matchup. You know, you don't want to see too many matchups on the road to the Final Four where teams in their own conference are facing off. You know, especially early on. You know, it kind of sucks because you've already played each other 2 or 3 times already. So it's kind of like in hockey, you're playing the same teams over and over again every week or two. But yeah, I thought that Lon Kruger did a good job making adjustments and everything during the game. He's a well-seasoned coach. You know, one of the best in the business, probably one of the more underrated coaches out there with what he's been able to do with the Sooners. But yeah, Missouri put up a lot of fight. It was a really good game. It wasn't the best game that I've seen this tournament. I think the best game that I've seen was probably the West Virginia Syracuse game yesterday.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh,
that was a really good game. But yeah, I thought that Lon Kruger did an excellent job of just handling the pressure and making adjustments when he had to. But yeah, it was a really good game. I mean, that's what you want to see out of a conference matchup like that out of the Big 12. So,
Ray, what are your thoughts on this game?
That was a tough game, and everything when Oklahoma and Missouri played a really standard game. But the key on this game was that Oklahoma actually won this game on the foul line. They went 19 for 24, and they had 8 more attempts, and they made 6 more than Missouri did. And I think that's what cost Missouri this game. I think Oklahoma had a good strategy coming in, drawing a lot of fouls, and I mean, they all said that with Missouri went 11 for 27 from 3, 7 to 15. They were 40.7% from 3-pointer. Oklahoma hit 7 for 15 for 46.7%. I mean, the stats are very close. And like I said, it comes down to the foul shooting, and foul shooting actually won this game for Oklahoma.
So my thoughts on this game, I thought it was very, first half was more Well, they scored, both teams scored less. They scored like 20 less points than in the second half. So in the first half, Missouri scored 27, and then they scored 41 in the second, while you have Oklahoma, who scored 26 in the first, but 46 in the second. I think this game really went down the wire. You see more scoring being done when a game is on the line. So I really like this game, especially when it came down to this, especially when it came down to the second half, because I'm a very big offensive guy. I like it when games are high scoring. I don't know why, I just do. So the next matchup, we're gonna get to that in a second once I find my bracket here. But I'm just gonna go going into the Gonzaga Oklahoma game. It was just another blowout for me. But Ray, why don't you go first on this? What are your thoughts
of the Oklahoma Gonzaga game? I mean, it started out pretty good. I mean, they went down. I mean, it was like down to the wire and stuff like that. You know, Gonzaga pulled it out, by 16 points over our big Power 5 conference team. So, I mean, making Gonzaga look impressive. But, I mean, Oklahoma, I mean, I think they were a little bit outmatched in this game. Not enough firepower to keep up with Gonzaga. If you're going with Gonzaga, you got to match them. You got to match them for 3 for 3. You got to match it for 2 for 2. And, I mean, you can't get up in a running game with Gonzaga because Gonzaga will run against you. And Oklahoma tried to play a little bit of slower pace than the way they normally do. But at the end of the game, right now, Gonzaga's got a high streak going. And right now, it's going to take a complete team and a complete game to beat Gonzaga.
Craig?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I know that earlier I didn't have, I had a couple of teams that are already bounced out that I had in the Final Four. Luckily, my Loyola Chicago Ramblers are still hanging in there, and they might make a run for it. But yeah, Gonzaga, here's the thing about Gonzaga: they got two guys on their team right now that are probably going to go within the top 10, maybe top 12 in the NBA draft. That's something that Gonzaga usually doesn't really pump out. I mean, they've had some really good pro prospects and stuff, but they've never had really two primetime blue chip NBA draft guy, first lottery picks, in the same roster at the same time. And, you can't go against a team that's probably got a guy with probably, I would say, the best mustache that I've seen in the last few road to the Final Fours. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but he's got one of the best mustaches that I've ever seen. So you just can't go against a team that's got a guy that's sporting a mustache like that. I'm telling you. But yeah, Gonzaga, the game was 16 points, but I don't really think that the game was really all that close. I mean, 16 points doesn't sound like a bad beating, but Gonzaga just outplayed Oklahoma. Definitely, Oklahoma put up a lot more fight than Norfolk State did. But the thing about Oklahoma, though, is they're still well coached. They're just not. Yeah, I mean, there's not too many teams, I would say, that are in the same league as Gonzaga. So, like Ray said, it's going to take a really complete, almost perfect game to beat a team like Gonzaga because they're just hitting on all cylinders right now. And, yeah, they're looking about as good as any team that I've seen in the last few years. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that Gonzaga's got something really going right now. Their defense is looking great. Their transition offense is looking great. They're hitting threes. They're really good from the free throw line. I don't really see a lot of weaknesses within that team. And so, they're led by an all-world, all-class, big-time stud ball player in Suggs. And, yeah, they're going to go a long ways. So that's my take on Gonzaga right now.
I got a question right now.
Okay.
Gonzaga only played 7 players in that game.
Yeah.
Their starters are averaging time is averaging 35 minutes. Kispert is averaging 30. Suggs is averaging 35. Newland Harm is averaging 38, and AYI he's averaging 37 minutes. They have two bench players that come in. We have Watson comes in and plays 18 minutes, and they had Cook come in and play for 7, and they only give him 42. They only give him 6 points off the bench. So, you got to understand if you get a deep team and start running Gonzaga, is Gonzaga's legs gonna give out? Are they gonna start getting tired here going towards the end of the tournament?
They may start getting a little bit tired. I think that you hit on a great point, Ray, because I think that the only way to really try to uh, break them down, like you said, they only have a couple guys that maybe Mark Few is comfortable with putting into games of this status right now. So he's not really going deep into the bench. Is teams might have to just start trying to draw some fouls, try to get some quick transition points, get the ball down into the paint and try to get a few guys into foul trouble so that Mark Few will have to use his bench because he obviously doesn't have a lot of trust right now outside of a couple key guys coming off the bench. So
going into the next game, well, my thoughts on this first. There were way too many fouls by Oklahoma. They had 21 fouls that entire game, which is a lot compared to Gonzaga. They only had 12 in that matter. There was way too many. I think that's what really killed Oklahoma in this game. Other than besides they didn't score that very many points. I think the fouls really killed Oklahoma. But now going into this, we got to look at and see Gonzaga as they play their next game against Creighton. We got to look at how many players will be playing that game and deciding that factor of whether or not they're going to who will pull off on this one, whether or not who will win, who will lose in this. So speaking of Creighton, they beat UCSB by 1 point. Greg, we'll go with you on this one first. What were your thoughts on that game?
Oh man, these nail biter games get you every time. When you see a game like West Virginia, Syracuse coming down to it, you just saw a game not too long ago where the game ended where a team might have had a chance to tie, but a guy traveled, like about half a second left. So I mean, you get a team like, Creighton. Um, they're a pretty scrappy team. They seem to be able to find a way to win. I don't really see them going too much further down the road with what they got, but yeah, they've been pretty impressive the last couple of games. With just they're pretty resilient and they're able to get some easy buckets and make some adjustments when they need to as well. But yeah, I think that reality is going to set in here pretty quick on Creighton. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Like we were talking about, whether Mark Few is going to start running some more players maybe in games to come and everything. When I played in college, my college coach, he liked to only play a couple key guys off the bench too. But then he started using the bench more too because people, teammates and stuff, started getting gassed. You play a heavy schedule, you play 30 to 35 games, and your starters just get worn out no matter how much time and conditioning you put in. I mean, when you're running your starters 32 to 37 minutes a night, players need a break. They need breathers and everything. So I'm kind of, that's the only thing I'm really worried about, like Ray was saying about Gonzaga. But to get back to your question about Creighton, I thought that it was a pretty good game and a well fought game. I mean, these games are just driving me nuts. With these 1-2 point games, 3 point games, it's just It's crazy. We're seeing some really good ball. I mean, very entertaining, well played basketball so far.
Right?
Well, in this game, USC Santa Barbara Gachos, they played a pretty good game. They kept the game close, and the reason they kept the game close was they 13 for 17 from the foul line. They took 10 more foul shots than Creighton, and they made 9 more. And so that kind of helps you. But Creighton went 7 for 25 from 3-point line. They went 5 for 21. And then Creighton went for 25 and 58, 44.8%. But then the USC only shot from 2-point range, 22 for 57 for 38.6%. But this game was even closer than that. This game could have easily been won by USC because they missed a close in shot at the end. I mean, they really had a good look at the game winning shot and they missed it. So, I mean, Creighton was lucky to get past this team.
For me, I think really, I was kind of surprised when there were 5 shots, made from the 3-point line. From the 3-point line, well, there were 21 attempts, and there were only 5 of those were made by UC Santa Barbara. But going into Creighton, there was like 7 out of 25 attempts. I think both teams need to work better at their 3-point shots.
Now, I got a question for you guys. As we've seen, there's been several games that's come down to the last shot or the last attempt to try to tie or win the game, in the last few seconds. I would say that about 10% of the time, the team actually runs the play exactly how the coach drew it up, because it seems like they're just kind of playing street ball the last 5 seconds or so of the game. I mean, you hear the announcers every single game. It's like, I don't think the coach drew it up like that. I don't think the coach drew it up like that, and they're trying to hit all these crazy shots, and it just doesn't look like, I mean, it's like the coach is just wasting a timeout because they just come out and they can't even get up anything close to what the coach is probably wanting. And what do you think about the execution or the lack of execution in some of these games?
It could be the defense too. I mean, the defense, you run a certain play, the defense pick that play up, then you got to go to a secondary play. And if the coach don't call a timeout to get a secondary play, and I can tell you from one instance of that is a girls' championship game in 1994 between Carolina versus Louisiana Tech. They first initial play was run a lob to Charlotte Smith. That play was blown up. They had a timeout. They called a timeout and reset it, and she came around and hit a game-winning 3-pointer and won the national championship. So, I mean, these teams are not executing what the coaches want, but how much is it the other team playing good defense, figuring out what the coach is trying to run? Now to make them go to a secondary instead of calling a timeout and do a secondary play, they just went on ahead and tried to go street ball with them. So, I mean, that's some ways of you're looking at it. You get close games, and some teams just go turn into street ball, and they don't want to call another timeout to get that team another defensive setup, so to run a different play.
Yeah, it might be great defense. It just seems like I've seen about 4 or 5 games now where the team that is trying to either tie the game or win the game or get the game to overtime, they just look completely out of sync. And it might be great defense, or it might just be that they just couldn't execute. I don't know.
True.
So the next game right after that was one of the many upsets so far. Ohio ended up beating Virginia by 4 points, which hurt my bracket a lot because I had Virginia beating Gonzaga to make it onto the Elite Eight, but that didn't end up happening, obviously. Now, go with Ray on this one first. What were your thoughts on this game?
Well, I mean, Virginia, you got to look at Virginia. They won the national championship last year, the year before. And then they come in here and they get beat by, Ohio. They got beat by the 16 seed. The first time a number 1 seed got beat by a 16 seed. I mean, Virginia sometimes come in lackadaisical, not ready for a game to play in the NCAA tournament. It's just a falter by them not being there ready to play. But you got to look at this game though. Virginia only shot 25.8% from 3-point range, 8 to 31, 723 for Ohio for 30.4. But what cost Virginia this game was at the foul line because Ohio had 13 out of 14 for 92.9%. Virginia came in 80% at 8 and 10. And then they only shot 35%, 21 out of 60 from the 2-point range. And then you had Ohio at 21 out of 50 for 42%. So I mean, Virginia plays that great defense, that slow paced defense, and I think Ohio had a good opportunity, sped them up. I mean, at certain times, Ohio were running on 'em. So I mean, Ohio actually sped Virginia up. That Virginia don't want to play that high speed, type game. And I mean, it was in that Virginia Ram, but I think this game came down to where Virginia had a 1 point lead at halftime, 28 and 27, and then Virginia only scored 30 points in the second half, as Ohio scored 35. So I mean, it just came down to execution, and I think Virginia didn't execute it very well.
Yeah, honestly, Virginia turned the ball way too often. Virginia had 10 turnovers this game, where you see where you see Ohio only turned the ball over 3 times, and there was just there. I think really, even though it was a close game, I really think Virginia was lacking in everything. You know, there was the field goal range, the 3-point range, the turnovers, rebounds. There were Virginia was lacking a lot of things. But we're gonna go give this to Greg and give his little input on this game.
Well, yeah, Ray said it right there. Turnovers, and you said it too, Nate. I mean, it's hard to win a game when you're kind of killing your own self. Turnovers, handling the ball is key in any game, whether it's middle school, high school, college, pros. I mean, it's hard to win a game when you're committing that many turnovers. And then Ohio did a really good job protecting the ball and not giving the ball up. I didn't think that Virginia played a very. I didn't think that. I thought that Virginia played pretty well defensively, but they just had so many turnovers, and some of those turnovers led to a lot of transition baskets and everything. And I think that was a big difference in that game. When you give the ball over or you throw the ball away and it leads to other points, for the other team in transition, you just can't defend that very well. So I thought that Virginia kind of looked like the old Utah Jazz, slow it down, get the half court game, play solid D and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State was hitting their shots. I mean, they had an excellent field goal. I mean, they played a pretty perfect game to beat Virginia. They were shooting really well from the field, getting high percentage shots, getting great transition offense going. Virginia was turning the ball over left and right, and just was. I don't know if it was carelessness or what, but a seasoned team like that, and a great defensive team overall, should have been able to protect the ball a little bit better than Virginia did. But you got to give Ohio a lot of credit. They hit the shots when they had to. They were hitting some pretty good threes, and that's one thing that Virginia's defense does give up every now and then is a few decent looks from the 3-point line. So Ohio played a really good game. I'm not taking anything away from Ohio. I just think that Virginia, they're just not suited really to play the up and down, let's get up and down the court game that a lot of these teams are able to do right now. So I didn't have Virginia going extremely far. I did have them taking out Ohio, but Ohio just was the better team from tip to buzzer. So, yeah.
Yeah. Next game, Creighton versus Ohio. The winner of both these matchups. Now, Ohio kind of got a little blown out in this game. Final score being 72-58. Greg, since you went last time, you get to go first in this one.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Sometimes when you're a very low, like Cinderella type team, and you come up with a big win, sometimes that can carry over, like we've seen with like an Oral Roberts that's been able to build on that momentum. And then you get a team like Ohio They had a really great game a few days before against Virginia, and then they just kind of come out and they get flat. And as we all know, come tournament time, when a team gets flat, that's a very bad sign, and things aren't looking good because teams will prey on that and they won't let up, and they'll go 100 miles an hour and try to put you away and put you away early. And that's what happened to Ohio. They just didn't seem to quite get anything going, and Creighton played a lot better, more balanced ball than they did. But Ohio, taking nothing from them. They had a great season. They got a great upset win in the first round, but they just weren't able to put anything together really in this game.
Ray, we'll go to you, and then I'll answer my thoughts.
Well, in this game here, Creighton poured it in first half 39-24, and then Ohio came back and won the second half 34-33. But like I said, that first half low for Ohio cost them this game. But I think the 3 guard offense that Creighton deployed in this game was a very good strategy against that 3 forward that Ohio plays. So I think they were a little bit quicker here. And the big stat that's turned out in this game is, once again, both teams didn't shoot very good foul shooting. They were all under, one was over 50%, the other one's at 69.2%. But what they got this game going here is the down low. Creighton was 27 out of 60 with 45%, and they were 9 for 21 from 3-point range. Ohio came in at 31.8 at 21 and 66 from 2, and 7 and 30 for 23.3. So, I mean, they went to the line. Ohio went out more to the line 3 more times, and they both hit 9 shots from the foul line. So, but you got to look at the turn and tell all the stats here. I mean, Ohio out rebound Creighton 44-39, but still Creighton pulled out the win, and I think it was all due to the low production that first half by Ohio.
For me, I think that even though in this game compared to the first game when Ohio beat Virginia by a couple of points, I still think that Ohio was a better defender in this game compared to Creighton. But Creighton was a bit more of a great offensive team. They put up 72 points in this game. They were over Ohio in 3-point percentage, and they were over Ohio in the field goal percentage. So I feel like really what got Creighton this lead was really that high-powered offense compared to their defense.
Yep.
Going into the next game here, USC versus Drake. That was not an upset here. USC beat Drake 72-56. Ray, we'll go with you first on this. What were your thoughts?
I mean, USC was a way better team than Drake. I mean, Drake was just overmatched in this game. I mean, you could look at some of the the tell and tell of the. I mean, they out rebounded USC by 4. But you got to look. I mean, they kept this game, trying to keep the game close at the foul line. I mean, they shot 81.8%. Drake did, but USC only 53.3. But what you get in this game here is they were 29 out of 58 from 2, 50%, and then 20 out of 68% for Drake for 29.4%. And I mean, USC shot a little bit better percentage wise over Drake, but like I said, this game was just overmatched. You can tell the talent is not there.
Greg?
Yeah, sadly I don't know what I was doing. I had Drake in an upset. I didn't really research Drake very well, but it sounded like a good kind of potential upset pick to me, just because Drake has some pretty good 3-point shooters. But yeah, Evan Mobley was dominant. USC. I mean, yeah, they're up by about 30 points right now with less than 2 minutes to go over Kansas. Yeah, USC. I mean, the Pac-12 is just well represented this year. I don't think Colorado lost, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they put up a pretty good show so far. I think they've got 4 teams through um, into the Sweet 16. But yeah, USC was just outgunned them. They just got up and down the floor. Great defense, just flat out. They get after it. They rip the boards down. Yeah, Drake didn't really have much going on that game.
Honestly for me, in this game, hold on, I clicked on the. It was just a completely big blowout. Uh, US USC was just great in everything, as Ray said. So we're gonna go over the next game, Kansas and Washington. This is more of an NBA style game, high scoring. For a college level game, I should say. 93-84 was the final score. Hey, I rhymed. Uh, Ray, we're gonna go with you first. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, this game, if you look at it, Eastern Washington University was winning 40, 49, 40, yeah, 46-38 at the first half. And then Kansas put on 55 points to 38 in the second half.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the first half was good. It kept it, they were in the lead, but Kansas got their feet underneath them and poured on. They showed the talent disparity between the two teams in the second half. Um, I mean, Kansas, only shot 47.9% from the field. Eastern Washington shot 50%. And you're looking at the 3-pointers, Kansas at 40, Eastern Washington at 38.5. But then the foul lines, I mean, it was very even there, 88.9 for Eastern Washington and 81.3. But what you get, you get your defensive rebounds. They got out defensive rebounds, but then Kansas got 10 offensive rebounds to their, 5. So, I mean, that's what dominates these games here. And the steals for Kansas was 7-2. And then you had 4 blocks for Eastern Washington, 3 for Kansas. Total turnover was 13 for Eastern Washington and 6. So that's the turnover battles there for the Jayhawks. In the second half, they just pulled away. Talent took over in the second half.
Yeah, that second half did really kill them, but also I thought what killed Eastern Washington in this game, like the Gonzaga game that we talked about earlier. Eastern Washington turned the ball over way too much. 13 turnovers compared to the Kansas Jayhawks.
6.
Six turnovers. That was just the biggest factor, personally for me. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this game?
Man, I'll tell you, that first half was really good basketball. I wasn't expecting this much of a fight, from Eastern Washington, and they really took it to Kansas in the first half. The Groves brothers, one with the headband and the beard and everything, he was on fire. They both were putting up some pretty good numbers. I think that Eastern Washington is definitely a team on the rise. Chantel Eggins is a very, very underrated coach, and he's getting some good talent over there. I know that they're a little bit more on the smaller side for D1, but yeah, they really took it to Kansas. I really thought that Eastern Washington was going to pull off the upset at halftime. I mean, they had an 8 to 10 point lead around halftime. They were playing pretty solid ball and everything, but they just weren't able to keep it going. They got out rebounded. That was a big issue later in the game, getting out rebounded so badly. And Kansas started hitting some shots, and they seemed to get their legs back a little bit during the second half. But yeah, it showed up tonight though with Kansas. I mean, they didn't have much left in the tank when they faced USC. I mean, USC just ran them off the floor.
That game's over actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Final
USC
final of
just
that
won by
game.
30 points.
Yeah. Which we're great transition here because the next matchup is USC and Kansas. What killed Kansas?
Oh, can't.
uh,
What didn't kill Kansas? I mean, they only put up 51
the
points.
fact that they're not in Kansas
USC's
anymore.
defense was
Oh,
spot on. If you look back several years ago when Andy Enfield was coaching Florida Gulf Coast, remember when they were making their run into the Sweet 16, and Florida Gulf Coast didn't have any NBA talent, but they had really good fast transition, fast paced basketball. And that's what USC is all about right now. They're all about getting up and down the court. It's going to be a great game between Oregon and USC because both teams are highly athletic.
mm-hmm.
They can rip down the boards. They both play great defense, but they like to get out and run. Run, 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 run. So that game could be like you're wanting, Nate. It could be very high scoring, but yeah, you're going to see a lot of movement,
Yeah.
a lot of getting up and down the floor in that game. That's going to be an exciting game to watch.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this right now. Kansas never really had the opportunity to have a lead in this game. Literally, their largest lead, looking at the stats right now, is 0 points because they never had the lead. The largest lead for USC is 35.
Yep.
So so they won. They were up and they completely just dominated. They blew Kansas to pieces, which is sad because I had Kansas coming out and being the Final Four team here. But
Yeah, if you look at it, USC shot 3-point from 11 to 18, 61.1% to 6 and 25 for 24% Kansas. But if you look at the turnovers, USC had more turnovers at 14, and Kansas only turned the ball over 7 times. So this time it wasn't the turnovers that cost Kansas. The shooting cost Kansas. The 3-point
That's
line cost Kansas.
Yeah, you mentioned a great point there, Ray, because with the upcoming game in the Sweet 16 round with Oregon and USC, both teams do turn the ball over quite a bit. U of O, they handled business pretty good today against Iowa, but they did turn the ball over quite a bit, though. But both teams like to get out and get some easy transition baskets. They like to get out and just spread the floor, and it's going to be interesting. I think that game is just going to be who takes care of the ball a little bit more because both teams are prone to making mistakes because they get the ball out, make some bad passes in transition
Yeah.
and stuff. So it's going to be interesting because sometimes both teams like to play a little bit too fast for their own good.
so, what are your thoughts on the Oregon and VCU game? No, I'm kidding. What are your thoughts on the Iowa and Grand Canyon game? Final score of that game was 86-74 in favor of Iowa. We're gonna go. We're gonna go with Ray on this one first.
I always got that big center. I mean, that dude is awesome. Garza. He's the one that carries the team. The hour goes as he goes. That's point blank. He had 24 points, 9 for 16. He was 2 for 4 from the foul line. And then, if you look at the score, our led by 11 at halftime, and then our won the second half of 44-43, but they gave up 43 points to the Grand Canyon. So they tried to keep it close, but they couldn't do it. The Garza is just a man. He's just a man child. He's just a beast, and that's what caused this game.
Like I said with the last game about the Jayhawks and USC. Grand Canyon never had the lead in this game. They had Iowa had the largest lead with 19 points in this matchup. And Iowa was just better at everything offensively. Defensively, Grand Canyon won the game because they had more turnovers and they had more rebounds. But offense, you really have to give it to Iowa on this one for putting up the points. Greg, we'll go with you.
Well, I hate to really just throw a complete diss out there, but Oregon really didn't beat Iowa. They beat Luca Garza and four other guys out there that were taking up space. I mean, those other guys out there on the team really weren't contributing much of anything. I mean, Garza, he had a pretty solid night rebounding, getting some offensive rebounds. But, he scored 30, 32 points in that game. Didn't have much help. He laid it all out on the line. But, yeah, Oregon came to play. Oregon was definitely, Oregon's not a very big team, and they got ate up a little bit on the inside by Luca Garza. He was just tearing it up. But I think that Oregon was okay with that because they knew that Luca Garza is an unstoppable force down there, and he was able to get his points. But they pretty much shut everybody else down. Everybody else was pretty cold. They weren't really, they had a few guys that were able to hit a few threes here and there to kind of keep it fairly legit in the second half. But yeah, Oregon just got out in transition. They played excellent D, forced a lot of pretty good transition baskets by getting some good turnovers when it counted. So yeah, Oregon just dominated that game from about 2 or 3 minutes within into the second half. Oregon just dominated. So it was a complete domination. Oregon went on like a 15-3 run or so. And then by the time the game had about 9 or 10 minutes, it was pretty much over. But Luca Garza, he put up a great fight. He played very well. But yeah, I think that Oregon, I don't know. I don't know if it was getting that Virginia Commonwealth game off due to the COVID or what. But yeah, they definitely were up and down the court and had fresh legs, and they were playing great defense overall. They couldn't stop Garza down low, but they did get a few good stops on him late in the game though. So yeah, Oregon was looking good. So being a guy from Oregon State, Pac-12 representing. I was a little disappointed to see Colorado get bounced, but Florida State's another very tough team. But yeah, Colorado put on a really good first round game. So yeah, Pac-12 is representing.
As soon as I posted in the All Sports All Plays group chat that I am rooting for Colorado since BYU is out because my cousin goes to that school, this happens. So maybe I'm cursed. No, I'm kidding. On a serious note, I think for this game, we saw it was another one of those games where, honestly, I think Iowa won this game defensively, but Oregon won this game offensively with the 3-point shots and the field goal range. But we're going to go. We'll go with Ray next on the Oregon Iowa game.
Well, you look at this game. I mean, first half, Oregon was up by 10, 56-46. You look at the second half, Oregon scored 39 and Iowa scored 34. But you got to look at the thing, like you said, it was an offensive game for Oregon. Oregon had 4 players in double figures. Iowa only had 3. Garza, and like you said, Garza is the guy that you got to stop. If you stop Garza, you stop Iowa. But Garza had 36 points, but he was the only really good offensive player they had in this game. I mean, West Camp, he provided 17 points, and then, McCaffrey coming off the bench, he provided 10 points, and that's your double figure scoring right there for this team. So I mean, you got to look at Iowa. If you let Garza go and get all his points, you stop everybody else, you stop Iowa, and that's what Oregon did.
So the next matchup, the next matchup in this one, we're actually gonna go down to the east portion here. Is another 1 seed versus 16 seed, and Michigan beat Texas Southwestern 82-66. Ray, we're gonna go with you since you went last in the last question.
Okay. Now, if you look at this game here, I mean, this game is you got to look at it. Yeah, I mean, it's like they won. Michigan actually won this game by shooting 3 for 9 for 26, and Texas Southern only had 1 for 12. They were at 8.3% from 3-point range compared to 34.6 for Michigan. Michigan is a talented team, and it just showed Texas Southern didn't really have the talent to can match up with them, nor the defense. I mean, if you look at it, first half was 42-24 Michigan at halftime. And then they dished in. Texas Southern came back with 42 points in the second half to 40 to try to close it in. But I mean, it was already too late. This game was won in the first half. Michigan played played a good game all around.
We have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes here, but 10 minutes left here. So, Greg, why don't you go next on this game?
Well, there's not too much to say on this game other than the fact that it's nice to see a team like Texas Southern enter the tournament. You don't see too many teams like Texas Southern make it. So when you get a team like this that's not really used to being in tournaments and making it to the big dance, it's good to see. Regardless of how they played against Michigan, I thought that there were moments that they looked pretty decent. But Michigan's just way too strong. They're a solid defensive team. They're a great 3-point shooting team. Michigan is one of those really complete balance. Play good D, hit the threes. They spread the floor. They run a really good set offense. So so I didn't really expect too much out of Texas Southern, but they put up 66 points and they played hard and they gave it all they got and everything. So I mean, it was a pretty good showing. I think it was maybe their first or second time ever being in the big dance. So you got to commend a team like Texas Southern. The circumstances around this whole season with all the COVID restrictions and everything, it's just good to see some of these smaller teams make a showing, like Abilene Christian, that's in their first dance, Texas Southern, that's in their first or second dance. Some of these smaller schools are starting to get their names out there and starting to get some really primetime players and starting to become more competitive. So I just think that Michigan, pretty much outgunned them from the 3-point line, like Ray said, and they just had too much firepower. You got to commend Texas Southern for coming in and putting up a pretty good fight and playing till the end.
All right. So the next matchup, we're gonna go through these quite quickly, actually. LSU versus St. Bonaventure. But I don't know how to pronounce that. LSU won this game 76-61. LSU goes on to lose to Michigan. Greg, what's your thoughts on this LSU game?
The one against St. Bonaventure?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This was another one where I thought with all the stuff kind of circulating around with the investigations into LSU's head coach, the recruiting and all that, I thought that this was a potential upset alert with St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies. But LSU, they came out and they played well enough to win, but they definitely, definitely ran out of gas against Michigan. But yeah, I thought that game, it was, I don't know, pretty boring. But I don't know. I thought that LSU was a team on the rise. I mean, I think that they played well enough to win, but I definitely think that I didn't really have LSU making it too far. In fact, I had them losing to Michigan, in the game today. So, and that's what happened. But I think that St. Bonaventure, another small school you like to see. A team with with the name Bonnies. I mean, you got to kind of pull for them a little bit whenever there's a potential upset. So. It wasn't a game that I paid a whole lot of attention to because it just seemed a little bit kind of boring to me. But yeah, LSU was able to do enough to grind it out.
Ray, what are your thoughts on the game?
Well, the Bonaventure game, I mean, LSU had more talent. I mean, they were,
Yeah.
if you look at it, 31-22 first half. You look at the second half, they won that again, 45-39. Came out to be 76-61 on 15-point lead. I mean, you know, if you look at the largest lead was 2 points by the St. Bonaventure Bonnies and a 16-point lead for LSU. I mean, that tells the table, offense and defense. I mean, LSU was the dominant team.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the Michigan game, it's totally other way around. Michigan's a dominant team over LSU, more talent, point blank.
Yeah. Field goal percentage, they were doing great. Yeah, 3-point percentage. LSU just dominated. Turnovers, same way. Uh, Rebounds, same way. So going into the next matchup, I know you kind of touched a little bit already, covering the Michigan game. Uh, but do you have any other thoughts going into this game about LSU and Michigan? Ray?
LSU and Michigan.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I looked at this game like this. I looked at the SEC has been down stuff for Alabama. Had a good year, and you know you play in Michigan. Michigan is got a good coach in Juwan Howard. He plays his style offense, and he doesn't, and he's got a good defensive rep, and guys. But I mean, if you look at it like this, I mean, Michigan won and they grinded out. That's Michigan basketball. They grinded out. They ground out a 8-point victory. So I mean, and both teams turned it over. I mean, you have LSU turned the ball over 20 times. Michigan turned it over 17 times, but no teams can really count on it. So for Michigan, you just sit there and grind it out. And I mean, that's what Michigan did all year. They just grind team out.
All right. So, Greg, we'll go with you next.
Well, yeah, like Ray said, Michigan they're a good grind out team. They play great. They tune up their defense when they have to. Yeah, and they're pretty deadly from three. So I mean, the best way to try to beat Michigan is to take away the three, because if you give the 3-point shooters any chance at all, they're going to knock it down. I mean, and we've seen it in this tournament. You just can't. They move the ball around until they get a good look, and then wide open looks, they're knocking down their shots, and that's what they've been doing all tournament. So yeah, LSU, 20 turnovers. That's pretty terrible statistic. But then Michigan did turn the ball over, like Ray said, 16, 17 times. So that's a lot of turnovers too. So Michigan's not going to go, too far if they're that careless down the road with the basketball, turning the ball over that much. But they do find a way to win. They do play some really good defense, and yeah, I think the Michigan's probably going to make it out of their bracket the way they're playing and grinding it out. So that would be my prediction.
All right. So, the next matchup right after that is Colorado versus the Georgetown, which I said my cousin goes to school, so this was the team I was rooting for if BYU didn't make it all the way, which they did, but Colorado. We'll go with Greg on this one first.
The Colorado Georgetown game.
Yeah.
Oh man, I absolutely loved that game. Colorado had so much athleticism going on in that game. They were just absolutely taking it to Georgetown. I was a little upset to see Georgetown before the game. They were all out on the court kneeling for the national anthem and doing this whole kneeling thing, which, I, on a personal level, I'm not big on that in any sport, especially the collegiate level. I think they should all be about just focusing on your game and standing and showing some pride, in your country and just getting ready to play. So I just loved that they owned every minute of that game against Georgetown, Colorado. They had some excellent play, perimeter play. Their point guard took excellent care of the basketball and just ran Georgetown completely off the floor, and I loved every second of it. I've loved Patrick Ewing, during his career with the Knicks. Thought that he was an excellent player, excellent collegiate player, but yeah, he just got out coached and outmanned in Colorado. I thought that they were definitely going to make the Sweet 16 the way that they just came out and just took over that game from second one of that game against Georgetown. I absolutely loved it.
Uh, we'll go with Raven for this one, and then this is actually going to be the final game before we give this a close. We'll continue this off. Probably in another show, maybe tomorrow morning on the sports status. We're gonna have to talk to Brandon about that. But Ray, what are your thoughts on the Colorado game?
Well, the key one is this 3-point line. I mean, they 16 for 25, 64%, 8 and 24 to 33.1.3%. I think Georgetown left all their game in a Big East tournament when they won the Big East championship. I think they left it all in Madison Square Garden. They didn't show up. They didn't play. I think them about kneeling and stuff like that might have took something away from the game. But I mean, I just think Colorado had a better talent. Colorado pulled it on them, and I think maybe the kneeling thing gave Colorado some pep talk. I mean, they coming out, I think they're all cocky and stuff like that. I think Georgetown did come out a little bit cocky, think they can win because they had Patrick Ewing as a head coach and they had the moniker of Georgetown. But like I said, the biggest thing in this game it wasn't the turnovers because both teams turned it over 12 times. I mean, nobody had an advantage in the turnovers. Personal foul, Georgetown committed 16 and Colorado committed 17. So, I mean, everything was key up to the point where they went, and I think the 3-point line was the killer for them.
All right. So, any final comments before we get this to close? Gonna go Ray first.
Yeah, I'd just like to go ahead and put this out that Elgin Baylor passed away at the age of 86 years old.
Yeah.
One of the all-time Minneapolis Lakers and the Los Angeles Lakers guy. He was NBA All-Star honored 11 times with 10 first-team all NBA appearance. And I like the suggestion that the Lakers went on and did for him. And in 1977, he was in the enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame. His 22 jersey was hanging up retired by the Lakers on the 3rd of November 1983, and a statue honoring Baylor was unveiled in April 6, 2008 at the Staples Center. So I think got to keep the prayer for his family and stuff like that moving forward. Once again, we lost one of the legends in Elgin Baylor at age 86 years old.
All right. So, Greg, go with you next.
Yeah, to add on to what Ray said, I mean, Elgin Baylor, what couldn't you say about the guy? He was an executive for the Clippers for many years. He was an executive of the year back in like 2006. He only had 2 winning seasons as general manager, but he was a very, very tremendous athlete, tremendous basketball player, just a very great person. What's very unfortunate about his career is he has some bad injuries towards the end of his career, and he kind of had to bow out of the game right before the Lakers were finally able to get a championship. So, they won a championship without him shortly after he retired. So he never did get a ring. But I mean, what can you say? I mean, he played almost 900 games, averaged 27 points, almost 14 rebounds. Just a great Hall of Famer, class guy. It's a great loss to the NBA community. Elgin Baylor, passing at the age of 86. He lived a very full life. It was unfortunate that he just wasn't able to win a ring while he was on the court, but the Lakers did do a very good thing later on and did give him a championship ring for everything that he gave them. He gave them his heart and soul when he played for the Lakers. Every time he suited up, he laid it all out there. So for all the time and effort that he put on the court, even though he wasn't out there to win a championship, they did give him a championship ring. as kind of a token of appreciation for everything that he gave them over the years. And another great thing that the Lakers did many years ago is they have like a statue of Elgin Baylor out in front of their stadium, out in front of their gym. So if you're ever in Los Angeles, you can check that out. Really cool. Just a very class guy, and very, very sad that of his passing, but he lived a great life, and really truly ambassador for the game of basketball.
All right. So this has been Nate the Great, Ray Cruz, and Greg Hot Seat Gallo signing out, and we could see you on Thursday, actually, for the Thursday.
Go Loyola.
Loyola, Chicago.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making the plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace up the field, so type the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.